Hi there, I'm Randy Patterson. With this post, I'm beginning a series of videos on the subject of cognitive distortions. Now, these are ways that we routinely misperceive the world around us. And that's important because the actions that we take depend on our seeing reality the way it really is. Invariably, this series will be incomplete because there are dozens and dozens, possibly hundreds, of systematic ways that we oversimplify and distort the real world. To begin with, I'd like to consider all or nothing thinking. Most things in life are continuous. What this means is that they exist on a continuous scale. You can have a little bit more, or a whole lot. Think of height, for example, or weight. You can be so tall, a millimeter taller, half a millimeter shorter, 47 millimeters shorter, or whatever. But even something this basic, we tend to shift into a dichotomy. We say that someone is either tall or short, fat or thin. There's one category or the other. If you're not in one, you must be in the other. Now, there really are dichotomies in real life. You either have the mumps or you don't. You either passed your driver's test or you failed it. You're either alive or you're dead. But most things are continuous, not two simple categories. So why do we dichotomize things? Answer, because it simplifies them. It's simply easier to think of A versus B than it is to think of 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.25, 1.3, and so on. Are you good or not? Healthy or sick? Competent or incompetent? Smart or stupid? Rich or poor? Happy or miserable? Essentially, what we're talking about is variability. And when we take a continuous characteristic and reduce it to A or B, we are losing some of that detail. We're making it less precise, less accurate. And sometimes the detail is where the useful information lies. Sometimes we dichotomize things in a perfectionistic way. For example, we might think of ourselves as being effective at work until we make one single mistake. Being effective means to us that we don't make mistakes. Making one mistake means that we must be in the only other category that exists, incompetent. For most of us, that means we will always be incompetent because we will always be making at least a few errors in our work. What about popularity? Maybe you only count as being popular or loved if everyone likes you. If one person doesn't, that bumps you into that other category. You're a loser. You're unlovable. You're unpopular. Or how about attractiveness? Or success? Or athletic ability? If you have the slightest flaw in any of these areas, then you don't fit the definition. So you drop into that other category. Unattractive, ugly, unsuccessful, uncoordinated. For most of us, that's going to be us. I do training workshops for mental health professionals. Some of those are full-day programs, and I want them to be as helpful and effective as possible. Inevitably, they're not perfect. Somebody feels I didn't go into enough detail on a certain point. Somebody else misunderstands something that I'm saying. Or I misunderstand a question that someone's asking, and I say something that doesn't address the issue. I can take that, if I want, as a sign that the program was a complete failure. By that standard, every program I have ever offered or will ever offer is a complete failure. If I think that way long enough, I will give up and never teach another program. What about when it comes to our health? Imagine that you've been having 3 panic attacks a day for months. We get to work on panic control strategies, and sure enough, your panic attacks become less frequent, but you're still having the odd one. So think of the dichotomy. Are you having panic attacks or not? Well, you still are. So you're really no better. Even though you used to have 21 panic attacks a week and now you have one. You miss out on seeing your improvement. This same thing happens with depression treatment. You start out with depression and you feel absolutely horrible most of the day. Trust me, depression's not a nice thing. And you do a lot of work, and that work begins to pay off. But you still have moments when you feel just as bad as you ever did. Your mind, which is looking for evidence that you're failing, because that's what a depressive mind does, will take that as a sign that you really haven't improved at all. But whereas before you felt that way 12 hours out of every day, now you feel that way 1 hour out of every day. That's still not great. It's not where we want you to be, but it's a significant improvement. And it's by noticing those significant improvements that we get the confidence and the motivation to keep going. So what do we do about all or nothing thinking? Well, the first thing to do is to recognize that it's happening. The second thing is to look at the situation and see if it really is one of those rare circumstances when things are A or B, yes or no, all or nothing. Usually, it won't be. And then convert your perception back to reality. Remind yourself that the situation is more of a continuum. You might find it helpful to use a phrase like a mantra. In situations like this, the one that I recommend is, where are the shades of gray in this? Okay, all or nothing thinking. So that's just one of the ways that we distort the outside world. And if we act based on those distortions, we're likely to get bad results. So the trick is always the same. Recognize what you're doing and shift back into something that more closely resembles what's really going on. In coming posts, I'll provide a description of more of these common types of distortion. See you then. My books, including the Assertiveness Workbook, How to Be Miserable, and How to Be Miserable in Your 20s, are all available from bookstores and online booksellers. There's information about each of them at randypatterson.com. And my online courses can be found at psychologysalon.teachable.com. Thanks for watching.